Rosselli Northern supports upstate New York construction with over 400 employees, 250 trucks, 9 ready-mix plants, 4 blacktop plants, and 40 aggregate mines. But their most important number is your bottom line. Contact them today to see why Rosselli Northern has been the choice for contractors and project managers across upstate New York since 1929.
All right, everybody, welcome in. It's Concrete Jungle, New York Baseball Podcast here. Paul Russo, Kyle Evans here with you. It's been a pretty good week overall in the grand scheme of it. Baseball could always be worse off than it always is usually. And for the Mets and Yankees, it's been pretty good. I'd say the Mets probably team-wise riding a little bit more of a high right now. But if you're the Yankees, can't really complain. The Mets helped them out. We'll get obviously on to that. Kyle, good seeing you. How's the week been for you so far?
Yeah, it's been good. Just kind of starting to realize that we're going to be hitting a busy September here soon, not just with baseball, but in the sports world in general, and I'm looking forward to it. It seems to me like August has kind of been dragging a little bit, and as they, say, the dog days of summer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's been a good week overall, I would say, for the Yankees. Last week didn't go so well, but I'm just happy to be talking about a first place team and a team that's 22 games over 500. Last year it was miserable.
Yeah, all things considered, I know they as like I mentioned, as a team they played 500 ball. The Yankees have the past week, but individually, we'll obviously get more into that because as I've been kind of just saying it all week, Aaron Judge pretty good at this baseball thing. Not just him, but we'd be remiss if we didn't make that probably our main talking point about the Yankees at this point. But more on that a little bit. Let's start with the Mets though this week, Kyle. Mentioned it was a really good week for them overall. They didn't sweep the Marlins, but they handled the business in Miami that you're supposed to do. Win the series there. They get a big series win against a good Baltimore team, as we know. And, you want to go a little bit step further. They begin this West Coast trip that they're on right now. A very big implication one-wise, obviously, in the wild card. And off on the right foot, they beat San Diego last night. So you look at the past, week plus since we've talked. This is a team that's now gone ahead and found themselves at a 5-2 slot over the course of the past week. Hard to kind of really complain about that if you're a Mets fan.
Yeah, and what's so impressive is the Padres have been absolutely rolling, and then they went in against Dylan Cease last night and really just destroyed them like they did back in June at Citi Field. So their offense is clicking. A lot of guys are stepping up. I think the walk-off wins against the Orioles were big, too. I know they're already playing well, but you could just see the energy and the vibe. I mean, when Jesse Winker hit the walk-off, Alvarez hit the walk-off, there's just so much more emotion than we saw when they were struggling, of course. And I just think that's going to maybe propel them to a wild card because they're not technically automatically going to make it. There's a lot of things have kind of changed, like the Padres and Diamondbacks have been rolling, which has kind of twisted things a little bit. But I still think if the Mets beat the teams that are ahead of them, like the Padres, they're in a good spot.
Yeah, this is what makes this West Coast trip all the more important because it is 4 games against San Diego, and that's another 3 against Arizona to start next week. And that's obviously huge, right? I mean, you can find yourselves in the Mets situation anyway, vaulting and then also trying to bury these teams a little bit. We'll get more on that, though, when we get to kind of maybe previewing the weekend here. Overall, you mentioned Jesse Winker and Alvarez. I know Winker was the one that, I thought was more, I don't know if important's the right term, but you talk about the reactions, right? A guy who was an all-star a couple of years ago at Cincinnati, right? And we thought that he was going to be one of the, if not premier, kind of like one of those tier 2 kind of corner outfielders, right? Where it's like you can't sleep on the guy. He's going to be good more years than not. Has kind of found himself in the past couple years wandering a little bit. Comes over in the trade deadline with a deal with the Nationals and, is kind of putting the mark on what what he can do with the Mets. He's put admittedly a couple guys out of big league jobs right now because of it even. So that was a pretty good, I'd say, stamp on his early Met career so far since coming over the deadline, that walk-off win. You mentioned a couple other guys, though, Kyle. You mentioned some other individuals here. I want to jump into a couple here. Luis Severino. We haven't talked about him a ton this year, but that's probably a better thing than a worse thing in this situation. I know he pitched last night in San Diego, went 5 strong, got the win, but his previous start for the Mets goes out and throws the first complete game for the Mets since Jacob deGrom in 2021. Kind of crazy to think about out loud that it's been so long the case that's been the case for the Mets. And, you know, I think I was more concerned about it and, you know, what this Mets rotation was kind of going to look like this year. You know, Severino, maybe he's not the ace next year, obviously, when Senga comes back, but for this year and what he's doing in a more or less prove-it year, he's done a really great job, punctuated by that start against Miami.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise for me is health. We talked about this in spring training, that what could hurt the Mets is him getting injured, and he hasn't. He's made 25 starts, which is the most since 2018.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was with the Yankees, his only other team prior. So yeah, I've been impressed with his health, because we know when he's healthy, he can do this kind of stuff. And that 3.84 ERA, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. He just has to stay healthy, and he will be a big part of their wild card push.
And another thing too, he's so much more looser right now. And again, it goes back to what you touched on, right, Kyle? Maybe more of a team-wide thing. But, you know, we saw him with the Yankees be a loose guy and everything, but the past couple of years you could tell this weighed him down. And I think even at the start of this year with the Mets, you could kind of see that a little bit. But now, you know, you talk about that the complete game, the win last night, he's really turned a page for the better. And, you know, I'm happy to see that is the case for him and for the Mets too. So in what I call the Aaron Judge shadow, one of the few players within this at this point is Francisco Lindor in New York from a broader sense. Lindor made history again over the course of the past week. He becomes the first shortstop in MLB history to three times be a 25 and 25 guy. 25 home runs, 25 stolen bases in a single season. First shortstop to ever do that. I don't know if this is fair, but to me anyway, kind of has become an overlooked superstar in the game at the moment, just because of, you know, you look around what, like I mentioned, especially in New York right now, compared to what Aaron Judge is doing, gets overshadowed a little bit. But you look at around the league, and, you know, I think a lot of people this year, shortstop-wise, look at Bobby Witt. And sure, the average isn't there for Lindor right now, but he's leading every Mets offensive category except home runs. And even then, he's only 2 behind Pete Alonso, who has 27. So it's just one of those things where it's kind of crazy that he gets this accomplishment. There's not a lot of talk around it outside of specifically within the Mets space. And I don't know if I could really have fathomed that a few years ago, in a way. You know, it kind of makes you wonder a little bit, like, maybe if he was back in Cleveland, would this be talked about more? But he did this deal one time with Cleveland, did it with the Mets last year and the Mets this year, so it's back-to-back 25 and 25s as well for Lindor. It's kind of strange. I thought that, you know, maybe Pete Alonso was going to be that guy. Maybe it's not. Maybe your Mets cornerstone guy is the guy that you brought in at the deadline a few years ago in Francisco Lindor. And that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly fine. Overall, this is a Mets team right now that I think has really been infected by what Francisco Lindor really embodies. Great baseball, great attitude, and it's kind of carried over. And I don't think, ourselves included on this podcast, is given enough credit this year to Francisco Lindor in the grand scheme. We've talked about him, but we haven't given him enough credit this year, and I think it's punctuated by this historic feat that he's accomplished now.
And remember, he was struggling for the first month and a half, and they moved him to leadoff mid-May or late May. I think it was May 19th. And since then, he's been leading in a lot of different offensive categories, even the advanced ones. So, I think the leadoff move really just helped him get going. I mean, even over his last 30 games, he's hitting 315.
Yeah.
So he's kind of doing not quite Aaron Judge's level over the last 30 games because he doesn't have the home runs, but the average is definitely what Aaron Judge has been doing over the last 30 games. So that just goes to show you, like it's getting overshadowed by other performances in the league. Bobby Witt Jr. Did just hit that number last night for the second straight year, and he's only 24, so he will end up probably passing Lindor. Right now, of course, Lindor's the only shortstop, so super impressive. And I think this guy is a difference maker offensively for the Mets as they continue to push forward for a wild card spot, which, again, we thought for sure there was no chance back in early May.
Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of crazy to watch. I mean, even then, all things considered, still well within the hunt for the Division II as it stands still. I know we're kind of trickling down, right, the number of games available in the pocket, and they are 7.5 back of Philly in that sense. But that being said, still is attainable. Things have to kind of go right, but there is a path to that route as well.
Look at the Mariners Astros.
Well,
I know it's a different scenario, different team, but I'm proving that can happen.
There is, spot on. And speaking of that, be interesting to kind of see what happens out in Seattle, of course, in the next month here. So, either way, let's move on to some updates on players here. Look, if you've been wondering why some of the Mets stock has been a little bit shorter than the Yankees lately, a lot of it has to do with this injury route, and the Mets don't have really a ton of them right now, which is a positive. Daniel Nunez back with the team in San Diego, expected to be activated from the injured list today on Friday. Things have gone really well for him in his rehab assignments with Syracuse. The last one they really wanted him to do was to throw a shutout inning if he could on Tuesday. He was able to accomplish that, so he is now back with the big league club and should be active for tonight's game. We mentioned last week the interesting thing about Sean Reed-Foley. They've actually formally pulled him from his rehab assignment and just kind of allowing him to rest at this point, try and reset some things we mentioned last week about he's not liking the mechanics of his throwing at the moment. So the Mets are kind of going with what appears to be a full reset at this point. And kind of just giving him a little bit of space, figure it out, and we'll circle back to it here whenever the time is right.
Yeah, they might need him very soon because Brazabum has not been doing too good. He has potential, but he is not performing right now. He's been one of their weaker relievers lately, so if he doesn't turn the corner here, Sean Reed-Foley's coming.
Yeah, well, you'd hope. At the very least, you get Nunez back in this fold now at this point officially. Maybe that kind of helps steady a little bit of that boat, but either way. Eddie Rosario, so we mentioned a little bit about the mystery, right? It was reported that he signed a minor league deal early week last week. Nothing official, hadn't reported Syracuse, and of course in true podcast fashion, as we call it, officially signed Thursday night, minor league deal, and assigned to AAA Syracuse. I think actually has one home run with them already, could be wrong, but I do know he has at least the one. Part of kind of everything going on here with the Mets, Starling Marte was activated off the injured list as well. We kind of figured that was kind of coming down the pipeline, and that came true. Ben Gamel was the unfortunate end result designated for assignment, but was pretty much immediately claimed by Houston. He's actually had a pretty big impact there already in his first game with the Astros, so he is off the roster for the Mets. And like I mentioned, that's all we got for the Mets updates on rosters and transactions and injuries. Mets have a pretty, knock on wood, getting these guys back. They've had a pretty clean bill of health, all things considered, through the summer.
Yeah, and they got rid of some weak spots like Jay Diekman, and I don't know, they seem to be just in a way better spot since going on 2 months now, which is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to talk to me, I guess really to be fair, it's 3 months ago, back in May, as it stood right now. Don't know if we'd be in the spot we would have been right on the doorstep of the Jorge Lopez incident, and who knows. So we already mentioned, right, 4-game series with the Padres, 3 games with the Diamondbacks right after that. Huge, huge, huge playoff implications here for all 3 teams involved in this deal. Mets already are 1 up on the series with San Diego, and then within the standings, obviously that's pretty big. We've alluded to it, right? These are big games. If you're the Mets, the worst thing that you can have happen, especially within the San Diego series, right, is drop 3 of the next. It's drop 3 straight. I don't see that happening. I Part of me thinks it probably is going to be a true 2-2 split. I just have a hard time believing the way San Diego has been playing. It's kind of like the Mets, right? I don't foresee them losing the series. But I have a hard time believing one team or the other would fully take it outright. But that's what makes these series big, right? Big is the fact that, like, especially the 4-gamers, if you can go out there and get 3 of 4, I mean, you're going to put yourself in a way better position now going forward as we slowly trickle underneath the 40 games remaining mark and closer to the 30 mark. I think that's a 2-2 split. The Diamondback one is really interesting. I know that they've been the second best team right after San Diego in recent numbers, the Diamondbacks. But, like, I just look at them sometimes. I'm like, what is, like, fully going on here? Because, like, nothing's making much sense in how they're kind of getting it done, but more power to them. I think that's where the Mets, I feel like, guaranteed at minimum series win comes in Arizona. Taking 2 or 3 there. I think it sets them up nicely to wrap up this West Coast trip, even though it's not on the West Coast. They finish up in Chicago against the White Sox. I think if they're able to do that and then go out and handle business against the White Sox, that's a pretty good 10-game quote-unquote West Coast road trip that the Mets would be able to accomplish and really set themselves up at that point, right, for that stretch run through Labor Day and the rest of September in the regular season.
Yeah, I think they get 3 of 4 in San Diego. I like how they're playing right now in the pitching matchups, and I think in Arizona they do lose 2 of 3. I don't know. I don't think it's going to go as smoothly, obviously, as they would hope because it's a long road trip and just things happen. So, and then the White Sox should be a sweep, but we saw the Yankees get destroyed. We know they can beat sometimes anyone. They won the other night against the Giants. So, I'll say they sweep the White Sox. And then, yeah, they're set up nicely in September because they have the Phillies for 7 more games.
Yeah.
Braves for 3. I think Red Sox still. So it's still going to be a little tough here coming up, but it's all in front of them. Yeah. It's on them. If they win these games and take the series,
Right.
they're going to be in a good position.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know I saw today they had a thing on the front page about the remaining homestands, and it was more or less a ticket promotion, right? But you have Cincy going into New York, going in to play the Mets. You have Washington still to go in to play the Mets one more time, and then obviously you mentioned Philly as well in there. And look, the Reds and Nationals are pesky as well, to say the least. So that's what makes this week pretty big. Is like, I think if you were to do a hypothetical lose, and go under 500 for the week, that's where I view it as like complete failure, as you should anyway. But like, I'm just talking from like that number standpoint, man. You would put yourself in a pretty big 8-ball situation, that if you look back on and be like, if there was a spot, like, obviously early in the season, right, there's a ton of spots, but, you want to go and look at a spot, it'd probably be something like this upcoming week where it's like you had opportunity and you blew it,
Yeah.
All right, let's go over to the Yankees here. As I mentioned, team-wise, 500. They lose the series to Detroit. Obviously, it's a little bit weird and interesting how that series went because there was just 2 games in Detroit, flying to Williamsport for the Little League Classic. It's interesting because at that point, right, I think I looked at it as like, and I was a pessimistic one. Well, you were too, I guess, to a degree last week about the Guardians series. They actually go out there and win the Guardians series in pretty convincing fashion for the most part, outside of what was it, Tuesday's game?
Yeah,
So
1 for 16 with runners in scoring position.
And just an extreme deal there that we'll touch more on because of just the injury news surrounding that game in a little bit. But, for the Yankees, it's weird because, like, you lost the series to Detroit, but you showed that you can beat clearly a very good team in Cleveland. So it's like you got to take, I guess, a little bit of the highs, a little bit of the lows, not to do the Verdugo quote from the White Sox game, a week ago. But, it's like, well, it's baseball sometimes. That being said, definitely would have preferred having one of those games back against Detroit. Don't know which one out of the Saturday shutout or the walk-off in Williamsport I'd rather want back. But either way, can't reverse back time in that sense.
Yeah, the thing is about the last maybe 12 games or so, the Yankees have been pitching much better. The rotation's giving them more length. And in Detroit, I mean, all those games were so winnable if they had just a little more offense. The opener against the Guardians, had they just got one big hit, they had so many opportunities. They'd be in even a better spot today. So, I think it's going to come, and I think they're playing well. They're playing much better than they were for that month stretch.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they won both series against Cleveland. I know the first one was all the way back in April, so things were a little different then. But yeah, Cleveland's been there all year as one of the best teams, and they show that they can beat them.
Yeah.
So I think that's encouraging. A series like that.
Yeah, especially Wednesday. Or rather yesterday. Pretty well and everything like that. Before we get to Aaron Judge, let's do this part first. I think what helps a little bit, too, is you get a little bit of wind in the sail a little bit. You're able to leapfrog Baltimore again, game and a half in the pocket against them as it stands right now. Shout out to the Mets for assisting the Yankees, obviously, in that case. The Yankees definitely found themselves back in a better, favorable position, obviously, right? You don't want to be coming in if you don't have to from the wild card. I know it sounds a little bit talking both sides out of the mouth here, right? Consider what we just said about the Mets, but it's two different teams in two different positions from that angle, and you have to look at it like that. And look, Baltimore since the trade deadline especially, and it goes a little bit deeper than that, I know, but, has not been great. I know we talked about the Yankee trade deadline struggles since those guys have came over in later, and obviously, De Los Santos being gone, but like, Baltimore's had a really rocky run with these guys that they've brought over, right? To the point that it's been punctuated in the past couple days with, Rodgers being optioned down to AAA. This is a spot where the Yankees can probably, in my mind, gap a little bit here, a little bit more. They got, at least this weekend anyway, a series where they can really kind of do that. Obviously, have to go out there and play the games, but the Yankees, I think, get a little bit of boost in that sail by leapfrogging Baltimore here in the past week and being able to find themselves back atop the AL East.
Yeah, Baltimore's been just really weird. They have a ton of talent. They started off really well, and yeah, it's been longer. I mean, even going into the All-Star break, remember they lost 2 of 3 to the Yankees, and they should have been swept. Ben Rice put them ahead in the ninth, but yeah, I don't know. It feels so much more wide open than it did maybe 2 months ago. It seems like the Orioles are very beatable. Even Gregory Soto, who they traded for, has been blowing games like crazy. Even against the Nationals, he pitched bad. So yeah, I mean, if you're a Yankee fan, you're encouraged with what the Orioles are doing. You're like, wow, this team is very beatable.
Yeah.
Despite their strong rotation, even Corbin Burns got lit up last night. So yeah, I don't know.
And it's weird how their offense, too, is kind of really it's tough to say because, look, Baltimore very clearly, right, whether we'd like to freely admit it or not, we have to recognize that, like, this offense that they have in the lineup, hypothetically, if it were to hold for a couple of years, we're talking about a very dangerous lineup. But the fact of the matter is they're all still very young, rookies, and combination of second and third year guys at best. They're still trying to figure it out. I think it's kind of punctuated by guys like, you look at like Gunnar Henderson, for example, and I know this isn't the Baltimore podcast, but like Gunnar has not been the same since the All-Star break either. And it's one of those things where hopefully, if you're looking at it from the Yankee prism, right, kind of stays that way. But I know for me personally, coming from the baseball prism and the Yankee prism, I hope they don't figure it out, because in baseball we know ebbs and flows pretty good. Hopefully they don't find that high streak when it matters most, as I would call it.
Yeah, guys have just basically stopped hitting for them. They've barely been scoring, and that's really the only reason. Their pitching has been fine, good enough to win.
Yeah.
And so you would think that they're probably going to get it going offensively, which this is why the Yankees need to, I don't want to spoil their next series, but they got to go take care of business this weekend.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the fun talking points here again. Aaron Judge. I mean, I don't know the exact number, so forgive me. You probably are able to find it better than I would be in this situation, Kyle. But for me, I have to eat a little bit of words. I was skeptical a little bit last week just because of the time, and lo and behold, because of what he's been able to do again for the past week, as continuing this hot stretch that he's been on, or year-long stretch, really, I guess, to be fair, right? Finds himself back on pace for at least 60 home runs now. I believe his slugging is now like 4 or 5 points above the league average OPS or something like that, or league highest OPS. I don't know what the exact thing is, but we're talking some absolutely insane numbers being put up by Aaron Judge. It's kind of, like I mentioned, it's crazy to notice, to the point that, even though his own teammates recognize it, right? But, Giancarlo Stanton post-game yesterday, by the way, good to see him find a bit of a power stroke here in the past couple of days, said how he's literally playing a video game right now, and everyone else out here is just kind of grinding. And, normally I would disagree with hyperbole like that in a way, but it's hard not to at this point. That's the thing. Like, what we're witnessing from Judge, we have not seen, and I guess I'll be hyperbolic here, we haven't seen since really Barry Bonds. It's crazy to witness. It's one of those things where, at least for me, obviously, I'm old enough to remember some of the Bonds stuff, really. And I never thought we'd probably really would see it again, just for kind of, I guess, maybe semi-obvious and non-obvious reasons. But, the fact that we could be seeing another, we are seeing a historic year by Aaron Judge. I don't want to dilute it, but the fact that we're witnessing what could be one of the truly best years in baseball history occurring right now, and just have it literally look just so effortless, is crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah, and the thing is, everyone keeps, I know they don't mean to say this, but if you think about it, everyone says right now he's playing video game numbers. No, he's been playing video game numbers for the last 99 games. He has 44 home runs in 99 games. And on top of that, he's hitting 380 in the last 99 games. This isn't no hot stretch. This is a 99-game stretch.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's a full season.
And on top of that, he's getting walked a ton.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he's still hitting for average while he's hitting home runs. It's just, it's unheard of.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see. We're so lucky to witness it every day, and I watch every game, so I'm blown away by it.
Hashtag blessed.
And we still have 34 games left.
Yeah.
It's crazy what he's doing. The only thing that I think holds him back from a 60-homer season, or even breaking his record, is teams pitching around him. I think, though, the good news, for example, like tonight and throughout the weekend, the Rockies really have nothing to play for. So I feel like there's no point of intentionally walking him. But I guess they still want to win, too, even though they're way out of it. So maybe they will. It's just, I think the playoff teams that are coming up that they're going to face are going to be pitching around him.
Yeah, that was the thing. I was looking in the one game thread on Reddit during the Cleveland series, and it's like, how come they just haven't pitched around him at all? It's like, it's tough because we know we're both baseball guys, right? And we know, and as again, always go to you on this type of stuff, Kyle. As a pitcher, right? You don't want to bow down to guys. You think you can get anybody out at any time. And, the fact of the matter is, from a gameplay standpoint of it sometimes, I mean, the fact that you even have a base open and you think about not walking him in certain situations is kind of crazy.
And the Guardians actually did walk him twice,
Yeah.
intentionally walk him in the opener when they lost in extras and yesterday. So see, he still had what was it, a couple home runs against Cleveland while being intentionally walked and while being walked regularly. It's so crazy to see, and I hope he does pass his own record, but I just feel like the opposing teams are going to stop him from doing so.
Yeah.
And what's crazy last year is too when he got hurt and how bad the Yankees were. He had 37 home runs in 106 games.
Yeah.
Imagine if he played even 150.
Yeah.
He'd be maybe 50 homers again. So
We're talking, and this is what I mean by it. We're talking the grand scheme of it. No matter how you kind of look at last year, a 2.5 year run of just absolute insane stuff from Judge. And if you want to go deeper, I think the only technical year that you could classify as bad was 2019 maybe or something like that, or 2020, a combination of the two or something like that. And it's something you brought up last week, Kyle. It's not that he's just power. It's just the fact that he's just a great hitter within this as well. It's just he. Dare I say? Do I do it? Do I do a hot take right now?
sure.
I think he's the best Yankee that we've seen, at least in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna stand by that.
And I think the most impressive part is there's no weakness. I mean, we see him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Pitchers go in on him and he pulls his hands in and still hits it out.
I was gonna say there is one weakness, and that's very clearly wiener dogs. But
It's ridiculous what he's doing. I mean, it's hard to believe. And tonight, he'll go and hit another one, and
Probably.
all you can do is laugh at that point because no matter where you pitch him, what situation it is, the Yankees could be losing by a ton of runs.
Yeah.
He's still going to put together the same plate appearance and still hit it out.
And we'll move on after this point, I guess. You know that a guy isn't worth, and we aren't a betting podcast here, but it's not worth betting a guy to hit a home run anymore because Judge is nearing what the books are kind of mirroring what they did in 22 with him at this point, where he has such low odds compared to the other players to hit home runs. It's it's one of those weird, you might probably hit it, but at the same token, it's the juice worth the squeeze, and it's you only really are nearing moving up 2 times a unit depending upon your bet. Last night, I forget which book it was, but he was only plus 200 to hit a home run, and he got it done, obviously. But I'm just saying, we're nearing a point with him where it's in that sense where it's you might as well just bet Soto, who's I think plus 450, type stuff, which is crazy, right? Soto's also having a really great year as well, and it's being completely, again, I mentioned overshadowed by what has just been a great Judge season.
Yeah, so on April 26th, Judge was hitting 178.
Oh, jeez.
April 26th, that's almost
Yeah.
a full month into the season. And you look now, he's hitting, 334. We keep saying it's insane because it really is. And the fact that he could be one of just 3 guys to have multiple 60-homer seasons is crazy too.
Yeah.
And again, I hope he gets it. And I know a lot of people, even non-Yankee fans, like Judge. So it's just cool for the game, and I don't know how, even if you're an opposing fan, how you don't want to watch his at-bats, as long as they're not against your team.
Right.
If you're an Orioles fan, you're nah, I don't want to see this guy. But, I mean, he's just such a great guy, too, and he's so humble. You heard what he said yesterday?
Yeah.
He'll take another 60-homer season if it comes with a ring.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, again, reading online, it's I wish this guy would stop making me like him. So, all right, let's get into some injury updates here. Jazz Chisholm officially activated off the injured list. Lineup hasn't been announced yet, but I'd imagine if he's active, he'll be in there tonight.
Yeah.
Oswald Peraza option back to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Okay. I need to preface it with this before I get to all these injury updates because a ton of guys have entering on rehab assignment, and I just want to apologize to the AA affiliate of the Boston Red Sox, the Portland Sea Dogs. You're pretty much are getting half a major league roster this weekend. So we'll begin here. Ian Hamilton beginning a rehab assignment with Double-A Somerset. That starts today. We've kind of known this has been building up. I know we mentioned a little bit last week that was the case. So he'll be joining them today. Mixed in with this, Cody Poteet also. He threw 2 innings on Tuesday for Somerset, 34 total pitches. He'll throw again with the team this weekend. I believe he'd probably line up for Sunday. My math right on that one?
I'm not sure.
Either
I
way.
think so.
Yeah. If they go by a true 5-day, it'd be Sunday, but either way. The note on him, right, probably not expected to be back in the major league rotation outright when he comes back. They kind of view him as the depth piece as it stands right now, should somebody go down. But he was a guy who has kind of carried about a 4-week-long stretch when the Yankees really need him to be that 5th starter and did really well.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add quick is fans all over social media are calling for him to be added to the roster.
Exactly.
I just don't understand that because it's such a small sample size.
Right.
And do you really think they're just going to take Nestor out?
No.
I would be fine if they did.
You would, yeah.
But, I mean, do you think the Yankees are just be like, hey, Nestor, you're going to the bullpen. Cody Petit's here. We're going to put him in the... No.
Yeah, I think it's just more...
And Clark's coming back, so...
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to him, too, in a second. Let's see here. Where was I? Oh, yeah, John Birdie beginning a rehab assignment with Double-A Somerset today. Anthony Rizzo beginning a rehab assignment this weekend with Double-A Somerset. Is that officially today? I feel really bad for these poor Double-A kids.
DH only.
My gosh. Oh, man. Clark Schmidt, he is scheduled to start for Double-A Somerset today in a rehab assignment.
Yes, it's official.
Okay, there we go. Lou Trevino has made 3 rehab outings with... Do you know it, Kyle?
Lou Trevino.
His 3 rehab assignments have been with...
Oh, my God. There's so much information.
Give the theme, Kyle, of what all these rehab assignments have been.
Yeah, with Double-A.
Bingo, Somerset. I think he's probably going to have another couple at least. I don't know if it will be outright with them or if they'll move him around, but still probably a couple away before we really see him make an entrance to back with the Yankee Stadium here. But, yeah, the theme has definitely been Double-A and Somerset for these rehab assignments this weekend. So pretty interesting stuff there. Let's circle back. Luis Hill, the starter on against Cleveland, in that what ended up being the long game of the series and kind of put a strain on the Yankee pitching staff for a couple days, placed on the 15-day IL with a lower back strain, only lasted 4+ innings in his outing. Boone said they're categorizing it as minor, should be back with some active bullpen sessions and live batting practice and stuff like that. They don't imagine it to be super long. Will Warren was recalled as the spot starter in the rotation here while Hill's out, but definitely a little bit of a minor blow for the Yankees in the short term. And obviously, as we saw in that 12-inning game, and just guys who I legitimately felt bad, and it's tough, but I felt bad for Mike Tonkin at the end of that game because of it, because he was the last guy in the bullpen, and that in that situation, right, Kyle, like for better or worse, you're gonna be out there potentially for a while in that spot. But Luis Hill obviously goes down with an injury here for the short term.
Luis Hill's annoying.
Jesus.
He has such great stuff, and he's so inconsistent. He leads the league in walks. It's just when you have that great stuff, why are you walking? I mean, he struggled against the White Sox. That's the only game they lost, against the White Sox.
True.
He's frustrating, but when he's on, I love him. So I know that makes whatever. But yeah, I mean, it is.
You pitchers are weird, man.
It is a loss. I hope it's not longer than what they're saying, because the Yankees they like to cover up stuff. Getting him back with Clark would be great going into the postseason. And yeah, there's just so many guys that I think that are going to come back and totally make this team different. That's why I wish fans, when they do lose like a series of the Tigers, just chill.
It's baseball.
Just chill out. This is not the team that's going to be in the postseason. There's going to be different relievers in the bullpen. I mean, Anthony Rizzo's coming back. Don't get me started with Ben Rice. Oh my God, is he horrible?
Poor kid.
And don't get me started with Alex Verdugo. We have to have a conversation about him right now.
Yeah.
He is not just bad for a couple weeks. He is league bad. He is one of the worst over the last 200 plate appearances. And you know how many bad hitters are in this league on bad teams?
There's a lot. There's a lot. I'm aware. I'm aware.
Like, here's a stat. I'll pull it up because this is noteworthy. Since June 15th, so that's, 2 months and a few days ago, 180 he's hitting. He has the lowest OPS in all of baseball. All of baseball. With a minimum of 200 plate appearances. 501. How can you keep running him out there, regardless if he's a veteran hitter or
I
not?
don't know.
At what point do you say, we have to bring Jason Dominguez up? Or I think they're doing it because they just know they're a first-place team right now.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to rock the apple cart?
And there's no panic. You know, as bad as he's been, they're still winning enough to be in first place.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why I think the move's not being made.
Yeah.
But have you seen him? He doesn't even get on base.
It's tough. I mean,
He doesn't even get on base.
It's tough because there's, a little bit of health stuff going on too with him that I don't want to make it sound like the pun's intended here. I don't mean for it, right? But like, the health stuff doesn't exactly affect his hand-eye coordination in that sense, right? I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I think the Yankees are kind of caught between a rock and a hard place with him in a way, because the immediate option, right, would just be, well, stick Trent Grisham out there, but it's not like Grisham in the overall has been all that much better. I don't think you stick Giancarlo out there, obviously. The interesting one, I mean, I know I'm avoiding this, but, it's because he did have an appearance over the weekend that we'll talk about. Do you stick Oswaldo out there? He does have a little bit of a left field experience. I don't know, but to that end too, right? I mean, then you're stuck for sure having to play DJ LeMahieu anyway. So again, another struggling bat. So I just think the Yankees are kind of caught between a rock and a hard place on it, and I do agree with you to that degree. I think it's a little bit they just don't want to really kind of rock the boat when they don't need to right now, in a sense. But kind of go back to it, if there was a time to make an adjustment, that time was more or less a month or so ago at this point when you could have gone out and gotten a bat.
Yeah. Well, I do think when the rosters expand 2 players here in September, I think Jason will be up.
Yeah.
And he should probably get more playing time. Verdugo will, be on the bench a little more. And I just think ideally going into the postseason, having Dominguez in the lineup even makes it more balanced. Yeah. And I'm not even joking. I would put him behind Judge. Stop putting Stanton behind Judge.
I think I think that's going to go last until Rizzo gets back.
That's another thing.
And then that's going to switch that back.
Those two bats alone, Jason Dominguez and Anthony Rizzo, totally changes the team.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they need to do come postseason time. Yeah. And then DJ won't be playing because Jazz is back.
Right.
I mean, that's such a better team. That's why I don't know why fans are panicking.
That's also the key part in this that I didn't realize. Maybe psych or whatever, but like you stick Oswaldo out in left field again if you had to. I mean, Jazz can just play third.
Yeah. It's a completely different team. That's why I don't see why there needs to be panic right now.
Yeah.
Let the guys come back that are injured. If Jason gets called up, that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. I mean, I don't understand the panic right now.
Yeah. Let's get into the Dominguez thing right now quick, I guess, since we're on him. So he was used as the 27th man because of the neutral site game. The MLB allows for the 27th man to be utilized. One of the rare situations for a non-pitcher to be used outright as the 27th man in a game was in the game.
There was a rule. There was a rule for the 27th man. It was not allowed to be a pitcher. It had to be a position player.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or else they would have went pitcher. And they knew that they were facing Tarek Skubal, so they were like, oh, we should bring up a guy that you can hit from the right side. Yep, there is a rule for that. It was weird.
But either way, still a bit of a rarity seeing the non-pitcher actually get used in the 27th man role in that sense. He was 6th in the lineup, right? My mind being remembering right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So Kind of right around that spot that you were kind of mentioning a little bit, right? But it will be interesting to kind of see. Obviously, gets returned back to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre after the game, and who knows when we'll exactly see him again next. But
He's horrible.
I thought it was just kind of nice.
He went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts.
I just like the fact that we actually had eyes on him for a game. You know what I mean? Not to say that it's tough. I mean, I personally have the ability that I can tune into the Scranton games at any time and see him. But I'm saying
Same here.
from a broadcast perspective, just kind of seeing him like, okay, he's actually here. That's a body. He looks good. You know, in that sense, right? Like, obviously you preferred for it to go better than 3 strikeouts, but like, beggars can't be choosers. It was just kind of good to see that, he's on the field and can move and perform and everything like that, I suppose.
For sure.
Speaking of Trevino's, Jose Trevino's back officially, activated from the injury list. Carlos Navarez was optioned back to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Inigo de los Santos claimed by the White Sox, and then Tim Maiza was selected from AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. So his first impression with the Yankees did not go particularly well.
It did go well, actually. His first was in Detroit. He pitched a scoreless inning.
Well,
the next 2 were awful.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. It kind of returned back to the Blue Jay ways, if you will. All right, anyway, we got to kind of rush through the rest of this here. We got caught up on the lineup discussion here. Yankees hosting Colorado for 3 games, then they're off to Washington for 3 games, then they have an off day, and then back to New York. Yeah, I mean, 2 of 3 is like the worst case scenario to me in my mind against Colorado. That's just kind of the way I view it. It's a big weekend for the team in general. They're celebrating the 2009 World Series team, as well as Old Timers Day tomorrow. But really the main celebrations is surrounding the 15 years since the last World Series win and team. So that's just kind of the way I view it. That's the way I kind of always view Old Timers weekend, I guess, in a way, in the grand scheme of it, right? And then Washington, I think, get 2 or 3 from Washington. You'll take that, go into an off day, and prep for another homestand.
5 of 6, or it's a failure.
Yeah, so we're pretty much on the same page.
Sweep the Rockies, lose 1 to the Nationals. It's okay. They lose 1 to the Rockies. It's just totally unacceptable. They're 47 and 81.
Yeah.
You didn't sweep the White Sox, so now go sweep the Rockies. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know the Rockies have Kyle Freeland going tonight, who, for better or worse, is pretty much their ace at this point. So I think Austin Gomber would have to be in there somewhere then, too. And I don't know who the hell would be another starter in that rotation this week. I think Cal Quantrill, the Yankees miss, so either way.
Freeland starts tonight. Bradley Blalock starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Austin Gomber on Sunday. And the Yankees still have not named the starter for tomorrow or Sunday. That's
Nice.
why. That's why.
My personal favorites.
Yeah, and it's going to be Will Warren, one of them, for sure. Boone kind of already hinted at it, but, yeah, who knows?
Cortez? Would it be Cortez?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way.
Either way, the pitching matchups just go destroy this team.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I don't disagree. All right, let's rattle through the Rochester and Syracuse stuff quick. Rochester staying hot. They've actually cut the gap to the Columbus Clippers, who are atop the International League. Now a game and a half back as opposed to 3.5 from last week. Rochester and Lehigh Valley this week, they're actually rolling the Iron Pigs so far in that series. Then they're at Scranton Wilkes-Barre next week. Some roster news with them. Jordan Weems outrighted from Washington. Joe Lasorso selected by the Nationals. Tyler Stewart and Garvin Alston assigned from AA Harrisburg. By the way, Tyler Stewart, hell of a AAA debut for him against Lehigh Valley the other night. 6 2/3, 9 Ks, I think 1 earned run. Some pretty stellar stuff from one of the better pitching prospects that is in the Nationals organization at the moment. Travis Blankenhorn and Orlando Ribalta option from Washington. Then Brad Lord and Spencer Watkins were both placed on the 7-day injured list. And by the way, Blankenhorn didn't miss a beat. I think he homered last night for Rochester as well. So there's that. Syracuse, on the other hand, 15th in the International League. They actually move up a couple places in the standings, but lose a couple games in the games back race. Now 11 whole games back. Home against Durham this week. Then at Lehigh Valley next week, Grant Hartwig back from AA Binghamton, assigned from the Rumble Ponies. Wilkin Ramos and Trey McLaughlin assigned to AA Binghamton from Syracuse. And Kyle Crick is on a rehab assignment with Single A St. Lucie. Now that's a name I have not heard in a while, Kyle Crick.
Yeah, my takeaway from, because I don't follow these teams anymore since we don't cover them. My takeaway is, man, Syracuse is back to their old form.
Yeah.
And yeah, Rochester, wow, 30-18, 5-game lead on Scranton, 4.5 technically. I don't know. That's pretty impressive.
No. Yep, they are well in the hunt, as we would say lightly, for the playoff spot. Second half of the year for the International League. So that'll do it for Concrete Jungle this week. We'll be back again next week, recapping and previewing a Labor Day weekend at that point, Kyle. Kind of crazy to think about. The summer is unofficially coming to a close.
Yeah, I'm ready for the episodes coming up, probably still, a month away, when we're talking ALDS rosters.
Hopefully, NLDS roster.
Yeah, starting pitchers, and just hopefully it would be nice one of these years, man.
Yeah.
The Yankees finally break through. And hopefully the Astros aren't the team again that freaking stops them, because, of course, they got a 5.5-game lead on the Mariners, who have just totally collapsed and can't hit and are wasting their very good starting rotation.
Yeah, I said this to a friend last night. If the Mariners aren't the best rotation in the league, they are third at worst. It's just brutal.
Runs scored. They've scored 503 runs. I'm looking at it here. It's just among the worst in the AL. It's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Rays almost have as many as they do.
Yeah.
And I like the Mariners.
It's not good.
I like the Mariners. That's one of the AL teams I do like. And it sucks to see them just blow it away.
Yeah. By the way, Garrett Cole, 150th career win, also picked up the other day. Forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
That was yesterday. It was weird, too. It's not like he wasn't really dominating guys. It was a really weird start for him yesterday.
Weird line.
Yeah.
One hit, only
5 walks. Was it 5 walks?
Yeah, 2 strikeouts.
Yeah.
But the Guardians don't strike out a ton anyways, but still only 2 is kind of weird.
It's just a weird stat line. Like, visually, it was a weird stat line.
How about the Guardians only scoring 1 run in the last 2 games of the series?
Crazy.
Yeah, and I don't remember them even having a 2-game stretch where they only got 1 run. They've been very consistent.
Yeah. Hey, happy that the Yankees were able to accomplish it, though. All right, Colin, we'll talk again next week. We'll talk again with everybody next week as well. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. We'll talk again next Thursday.